Harry's from the schools, or works with schools, and Reniera, you work with universities. Jules had started up there by talking about scale and the work that we do in learning. So I want to speak to you about the scale ambitions that we have. So we've got ambitions to engage with like 150 million people worldwide. So they're actively learning about the circular economy. Harry, you work with schools. What role do you think schools plays in all of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's absolutely vital that we are working with school-age students because these will, they will be the future leaders of tomorrow in various roles. And so it's vital that we reach them and we sow the seeds of the idea in the future generations. And I think I would echo Jules and say that the mindset shift that's required for a circular economy, we need to start implementing that kind of shift whilst minds are forming, whilst these young people are developing their outlooks and perspectives on life and the world in general.
It's like the front of pipe versus end of pipe approach, isn't it?
Exactly.
So the mindset is set that circular is the way that things should be done, things should be made, and it becomes natural to them to be thinking in that way as they become decision makers.
Exactly, so that hopefully by the time they go on to higher education and universities, it's about cementing the idea rather than them being exposed to it for the first time. Because by then, it's quite late.
All right, so we're going to come back to some of the detail of what you do and how we go about doing it. But Reniera, the same question to you. With scale being our ambition, what role does universities play?
Well, just picking up from Harry's point, actually, universities are the place where hopefully we're kind of scooping up that future generation, and we are really cementing some of these new and innovative ideas in terms of shaping their thinking and the future leaders and the future workforce of tomorrow. Universities play a really crucial role in the teaching side of things, and I think Jules mentioned it earlier, that they are really shaping young minds and getting those fundamental core principles of circular economy embedded in the way that the future workforce thinks. But it's not just about teaching with universities. I think over the last 9 years, the foundation has worked predominantly with the teaching and research side of universities. So we're teaching the future leaders of tomorrow, but at the same time, universities are doing a load of research which is helping apply the circular economy. So there's lots of examples of where universities are supporting businesses in making changes in how they now apply the theory of circular economy to their own businesses. And I think it would be easy to go, well, it's all about teaching and it's all about research, but actually universities in themselves are engines, they are entities that have a life of their own. And I think increasingly we are seeing that as a hugely important part of the transition to a circular economy. So not only what they teach and what they research, but actually what impact is that having with the students who are going through those programs? So what are students doing to start to drive the agenda? How are they pushing back at their university management to say, what are you doing to make our university more circular? How are they starting up businesses and how are universities supporting that? So really interested in seeing that role that universities play in supporting the students coming out with this new knowledge and how they apply it. And beyond that, if we start to think about universities almost like mini cities or a business in their own right and how they organise themselves. If you think globally, the number of universities or higher education institutions that we have, and you think about how they run their own campuses, they are fantastic test beds in their own right, and how they can design the way they manage their procurement, their supply chains, the food that comes onto campus, and they could actually be walking the talk. So these students are learning about circular economy, but actually how the university then organises and structures its own business side of things is equally as important. And I think the last area that we're sort of seeing more and more is how universities are really engaging locally, whether it's with business, whether it's with their local government or their regional government. And there are a number of different advisory boards at a global scale, and I'm pretty sure if you looked at most of them, you would see some really qualified academics engaging at a global level in this agenda. So I think, whereas it's easy to think of universities as being hugely important in terms of teaching and research, actually they are a massive sector on their own globally that has the ability to impact huge amounts all over the world.
And they seem to be very we were at a conference recently for universities, and they seem to be very motivated in the idea of doing better, environmentally speaking, on their campus. But there's that problem, isn't it? They're so big that you don't often have the researchers speaking to the campus staff, but that's your problem to deal with. You'll work it out.
We will work it out. And I think what was lovely at that conference, actually, which was in America, was seeing how campus sustainability and what the universities are doing at a campus level is starting to be picked up, and the relationship is starting to filter through to the teaching. I think students are increasingly, and I know we've had this conversation, haven't we, where students are learning something to then come out of that environment and not see it embedded in their actual environment in which they learn is quite a challenge. You were saying the same with schools.
Well, definitely. I was at an event recently where the teachers were saying, basically, it undermines everything that we teach them in the classroom if they then go out into their learning environment and they see single-use plastic everywhere, or it's very, very wasteful linear examples all over the campus environment.
Yeah.
I think, and it's true for schools as with universities. They're looking at ways that they can adopt those practices in the environment as well as the teaching and learning.
Harry, let's talk a bit about what it is you literally do with schools and how you support them. You tell us what you do there.
Okay. I'd like to start really by giving an example of a project we ran this summer just gone in Oxford. We ran a summer school for 1 week, and we invited 10 students from all over the world to come to Oxford, and we had an immersive circular economy learning experience. And the way it was structured, it's the first time we've done this at this age group. They were all between 15 and 18. And the way it was structured was that each day was devoted to a different topic of the circular economy. So we started with a big picture introduction, and then we looked at what does the circular economy mean for fashion? What does it mean for food? We had a whole day on looking at the built environment and transportation. And then the idea was that at the end of the week, we'd bring all of these different strands, all of these different learnings together and say to students, right, working in groups, your challenge is to design and build your city of the future. So what do you think a city would look like in 2050 that was built on the principles of a circular economy? And so that was a great kind of systems thinking exercise as well, because using the city as the context, everything is interconnected. All those elements have to tie in and work together. So it was really cool, really hands-on and creative. But we were kind of responding to feedback that learning about the circular economy can often seem quite theoretical, quite abstract. So we wanted to take students out and get them meeting people that are working in this space and seeing real-world examples. So we took them to London for the day. We took them to a fashion designer, Chris Rayburn, who's creating high-end fashion from surplus military stock. Kids loved that. And we took them to the London Waste and Recycling Board to hear about all of the initiatives throughout London that they're involved in.
And that was a good way for us to test the idea of these type of workshops. But we also do the sort of larger scale stuff working with curriculum bodies as well. Can you give us a bit of detail there?
Exactly. So, I mean, this was only 10 students. So from a scale perspective, we're trying to reach a lot more. So those face-to-face things are brilliant, and we can learn a lot and take a lot of insights from that. What do they respond to? What messaging works? What are they really interested in, these future generations? But we also do a lot of work around curriculum development. So there's sort of a bottom-up approach and then a top-down approach. And we work with the likes of the International Baccalaureate and United World Colleges. And we're specifically focused on the subjects that have an overlap with the circular economy, like design technology, business, economics, geography. And so we're making some progress there to try and integrate circular economy into the curriculum. And we understand as well that teachers have a very hectic, busy schedule. You know that, I know that, we used to be teachers. And if something isn't actually on the syllabus, it can be very difficult to carve out time. It just becomes a sort of extra add-on that only a few, a small percentage of people will actually look at.
And the curriculums tend to have like a turning circle of an oil tanker, so it can be a slow and a painful process sometimes to get in there.
It is slow and it can be painful, but all the more reason to get in there because if you miss the window and one opportunity, then it could be years before you get another chance.
And it's about finding the right person, isn't it, in an organisation who sees the potential, the possibilities. And then I know our work with IB is really sparked because of that.
Yeah, and they've been fantastic in that they really understand the concept. We've invested a lot of time in kind of, I guess, communicating the idea and what's important about it and how it can fit, and they get it, and they see the value in it, and their educators see the value in it. So you have teachers in the IB who are crying out for this, who are actually saying to the head office, I think this should be in the curriculum. We want to see more of this. Perfect. Can we carve out more time? So it's not just a kind of centralised top-down thing. We're hearing students and teachers saying, we want this.
Perfect, Harry. And Reniera, literally, what are we doing with universities?
Well, it's quite similar, actually. We've done a number of sort of smaller intensive exercises with universities over the last couple of years. But the challenge for the organisation now is how do we take that and how do we learn from that and how do we scale? We've got some really challenging targets around the number of people that we want to engage with who understand and engage with the circular economy. And those in higher education play a really large role in that. So over the last couple of years, we've done a number of things. We have developed a really good suite of higher education resources, which are available online and available to download. We have established what we are calling the From Linear to Circular programme, which we trialled last year and we will be rolling out more of over the next coming years, which is a bit like Harry's workshop over the summer. It brings together a smaller group of students and young professionals in an intense environment, but allows that greater sense of interaction and play. So we've been doing those sorts of things. I think if you look on our website, we did a really good report last year which looked at a kind of global snapshot of where we were with higher education, and there were 138 universities out there that had courses with circular economy in the title. And that's only the start of the story, because we know that so many are teaching courses about circular economy, but they may not necessarily have it explicitly in the title. And I suppose moving forward, what we're aiming to do is really scale the network that we've started to build. So we have a small network of universities at the moment who are all doing interesting and exciting things in various aspects of the circular economy. And our team is really keen to expand that. We know that we don't know who's doing everything out there, and we also know that the network can be really, really powerful. I'll give you a great example. Over the last couple of weeks, I spoke to a university in Australia, one in Portugal, and one in the UK, who are all thinking through the built environment and how you build a new campus and put circular economy right at the heart of everything about that. And I suddenly went, well, why don't you guys talk to each other? And they have, and it's been really great to have feedback that it was a fruitful conversation, and that's the sort of thing that we want to be able to do more of. We want to be able to bring more universities into the network so that we can connect people and we can help facilitate that, sharing that best practice. But it's all very well me saying this, but we've actually got a really great video from our latest network university. So Nancy Landrum, who runs the Circular Economy Programme at Loyola University in Chicago, sent us a little clip on how she has found working with circular economy really important and the kinds of resources she uses. Here's Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Landrum with Loyola University Chicago. I think it's our responsibility to promote circular economy and to educate tomorrow's future business leaders. If we don't do it, who else will? And how can we do that? I think we can do it through education, through classes, through workshops, through training, through hands-on projects that will get students involved with businesses and engage with others. And finally, what resources are we using? We use a lot of the circular economy resources on the Ellen MacArthur website. We use the readings, the publications, the reports. We also use videos, and most importantly, we use the Circular Economy Design Guide quite a bit.
Okay, so that was a word from one of our network universities. Harry, some questions coming in from the website. I say Harry because I've got one for you. It's more of a point. Rita says, it's important we work with schools because not everyone goes to university, but most of us go to and finish school. It's a very fair point.
That's a great point.
And also important to shift mindset in society.
Yeah, I think that comes right back to where we began, really. We recognise that the circular economy represents a fundamentally different way of thinking and acting. That's crucial. And if that's the case and we want to achieve a circular economy, we have to go where minds are forming and mindsets are being shaped. So schools is the place for that.
And agreeing with you is Hannington on Twitter, who says, for us to change our results, we must change our thinking first. Other good questions are coming. There was one from Matthew. You've covered it, though, really, about the role of the campus that can play in its local area. And we've got another question from Melissa, but maybe we'll come back to that later on. Just a final point, Harry, you want to tell us something about resources, or you could both tell us a little bit about resources that we've got, people watching this can get access to.
So this is just a really simple sort of card game, really, a card activity that we've developed. And it works I've used it with primary age students and with 16, 17-year-olds. But quite, very simple. We've got a set of cards. We've got, for example, lorries, landfill, power stations, trains, etc., etc. But the idea is that in groups, you can hand these out and you can ask students to tell the life cycle of a plastic bottle. And you can give them a little nudge if they don't know that plastic comes from oil. So you've got the oil rig and then you've got the shipping. And so they have to tell this story. And they eventually, they go from the oil rig all the way through to transportation to the consumer to landfill. And you ask them to kind of make some observations. What do you notice about this system? Okay, well, and you can ask, where is waste generated in this system? And they come to the conclusion that everywhere waste is generated. And then you can contrast this with handing out some different cards that we have, which are biological cards that contain like the sun, bacteria, plants, trees, and ask them to arrange those in a way that makes sense. And the difference is, what this highlights is that the man-made kind of plastic bottle system is a one-way, it's a linear system, highly wasteful, not very efficient. When you contrast this with the biological system that they've mapped out, you can see that it operates in a completely different way. You ask them, where's waste generated? There isn't any. Waste becomes food for something else all the time. And so you can use this as a springboard then to start discussing, okay, well, what if we had an economy that worked more like this biological system? And then you can explore off of that.
It can be a really powerful, I mean, I've run it a few times myself, a very powerful activity. And one of many resources that we have, downloadable from our website for schools. Also, you mentioned universities. We've got a bunch of resources that are there for anyone watching this who wants to pick them up and use them in whatever their setting happens to be. But I'm going to say thank you very much, Reniera and Harry, for now.